There's many water use planning issues we can talk about, but as I said, we'll focus on the domestic water use. And you can start thinking about 3 goal actions to cut off your water use daily. The metropolitan areas must deal with and provide 3 basic services: water supply, wastewater collection and treatment, and storm water collection and treatment, and management. I want to discuss a little because we are living in an area like this. So the problem, again, is impermeable surface. With that surface, the water cannot go down, cannot recharge the aquifer, and cannot replenish the aquifer, so you lose water and you waste the water. And many cities have separated storm showers from sanitary showers to avoid contamination. So when the time of flooding comes, your sewer will be much diluted and spreading everywhere. That is not healthy, that is not safe. So I want you to think about what can we do to reduce this problem. Water diversion is one of the human activities to impact the surface water. And because of the overuse and alteration of the water bodies like this, many rivers are declining or even disappeared. The water diversion is a process of transferring water from one area to another, and sometimes seen as necessary. But the major consequences for irrigation and other purposes is the water bodies downstreams are deprived of their source of the water. This often has serious ecological effects. It no longer supports the ecosystems, and it caused the lake levels decline, affecting the fish and other wildlife populations. And building a dam like this will affect the salinity of the water. Okay, the salt content will increase and also cause the alteration of the temperature in the water and the migration of some of the fish like salmon. A few words about wastewater treatment. The primary sewage treatment removes large particles. Okay, so it removes the big chunks from the wastewater. It still has a very heavy load of organic matter, and this time we will summon our armies of bacteria and microorganisms to degrade those excessive nutrients. And in the secondary sewage treatment, we culture those bacteria in the sludge, and we pump in highly oxygenated water. So we supply a lot of oxygen to those microbes so they can degrade the organic matter more effectively. So in the trickling filtering system, wastewater is sprayed over a surface of rock to increase the amount of dissolved oxygen. You can see how important the oxygen is. And this is they spray the water, the wastewater, so it have more contact with the oxygen, and the degradation will be more successful. And sometimes you just pump in the air and the oxygen. You see all those bubbles, right? That fosters the growth of the microbes. The tertiary treatment is additional stage to remove inorganic nutrients such as phosphorus and nitrogen. That is extremely costly. That's why we have this massive water contamination problem. The water is overloaded with nitrate and phosphorus. It's because this process is extremely costly. So a lot of industrial agriculture application organizations, companies, they decided not to spend too much money to clean up their wastewater before releasing back to the nature. So that is one thing I want to mention. The other thing is the groundwater mining. We are mining our water. We are mining the water from the rivers, from the lakes. As I told you, many lakes and the rivers even disappeared forever from the world. And now I want to mention the groundwater mining because groundwater is recharging those surface water. The groundwater mining is removing water from aquifer faster than it could be recharged. And it can cause land settling, right? Lowering of the water table and the saltwater intrusion. One typical example is we have this huge aquifer in the middle of the country, and you can see the declining rate is so alarming. Like majority of this area is like overdrawn too much and too fast. If we keep using the water in an unsustainable way like this, soon the huge reservoir and the huge aquifer will be depleted. And it's hard to imagine where we get water from in the middle of the country, which is like pretty dry. And see how much our land sinking in 15 years, about 7 feet. It's even higher than a person. And how the whole land sink this much because of the drafting of the groundwater. And it causes the salt water, the seawater intrusion. So normally the groundwater and the seawater maintain a balance. Okay, the pressure is stable over here. And then if we overdraft too much of the groundwater, the seawater will intrude into the wells. And that is not safe, and that is not healthy. That's why we do not just dilute the ocean water to drink, right? So that salt will cause a lot of problems. So the more sustainable way could be shifting from the groundwater to surface water, and we control the pumping with guidelines, policies, taxes, or regulations. It's hard, but we have to do it. It may not be perfect, but we have to enforce those standards, those rules, and we have to enforce the laws sometimes. Conservation. So this is what I tell my students every year. Conserve the water. Like turning off the faucets when you are brushing your teeth, that saves like hundreds of gallons of water each year just by one single practice like that. And the reuse wastewater, the gray water means the water we produce from dishwashing, from showering, and those water can be collected and treated and used for non-portable, non-drinking purposes, and the desalination of brackish groundwater. We can treat the contaminated groundwater, and then we can reuse them. The last thing I want to mention is the wetlands, because we're living in the area with a lot of swamps and marshes. The federal law is Wild and Scenic River Act that established a system to protect the wild and scenic rivers from development. This is how we use wetlands, not in a smart way, right? We use for urban development, agriculture, forestry, and rural development. That caused half of the wetlands disappeared from this country. Okay, and one example is the Florida Everglades wetlands. And in the Annenberg video, you will see the drastic change after people drain those wetlands and convert them to agriculture, convert them to development. And ecosystems almost collapsed. And we had to spend billions of dollars to fix that mistake in years. Again, the wetlands are very important because they are crucial spawning and breeding habitats. They support various lives, and their natural water filtration systems, you can imagine them as the most efficient wastewater treatment plants in the world, and they slow flood waters in the area without wetlands. I think the rate of suffering flood increased by 75%. And they are vitally important for the flood water control. So now, thinking back to the assignment I gave to each group, thinking about how to make your campus more sustainable, more ecological resilient to flooding, you can start thinking about wetlands. And on our Kingwood campus, I believe we have a little pond. I would not call that wetlands, but that is something beautiful and useful on the campus. It's not just for the view. We can start thinking about wetlands and have a later discussion. So this concludes this chapter. I do not have a what should I do slide because I want you to think about 3 actions you can take daily to cut down your water use. And that is very important.